Hey everyone, welcome to Out of the Reads with me, your host, Natasha Bracagelo. We are doing things a little differently today. The show is being put out way later than usual, so sorry about that, but life, it's summer and it's life. So today on the show, we'll be interviewing a friend of mine, Lauren Spivey. She's a really interesting story that I think maybe some of us have heard before, but in a authentic and truly honest telling, she's going to go into the journey of what her parenthood, motherhood, and just her life journey has been up until this point. So we'll get into the reads with Lauren in just a little bit. But as always, I always love to pull our own read before we get into our interview. So I'm going to be pulling a read from the Divine Feminine Oracle deck, which I felt called to because the author of this deck, Megan Watterson, I've been listening to her book, Mary Magdalene Revealed. And if you haven't listened to it, I highly recommend it. It's very interesting and something that I feel like I'm being drawn to and called to more. So in the spirit of that and, our show today, let's get into the reads with pulling a card and see what we get. Ooh, the cosmic egg, the divine feminine. I hold the universe within me. I am the force of an ever expanding love. I mean, what else is there to say? The cosmic egg, the divine feminine. I mean, the universal, right? This is the universal context of everything. I love it. I am super excited to just see where everything goes these days and to get into our show today with Lauren. So I hope you guys enjoy and see you on the other side. Thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. The reason why I wanted to interview you is because I feel like you have a really interesting story in a parenthood journey that not a lot of people, I feel like, get a chance to hear because, I just don't feel like they do. Like, that people have different stories, but you don't always get to hear what the story is. And I know you personally, our boys grew up together, which I think is so cool that they're still in the same class. So thanks for coming on the show and being open to it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. So when we met, you were married to Andrew, who was in our friend group with the boys and everything like that. And the two of you, from what I know, you guys grew up homeschooled, right? And you've known each other since you were 4, is that right?
Somewhere around there, yeah.
So how did that go? Because I know now you're in a very different relationship. You're leading a very different life than when I first met you. So how did that change in your parenthood and your motherhood, your journey? Like, how did all of that take a different trajectory for you?
I feel like there's a long, medium, and short version to the story. I'll try to stick to the short version, which was that we did both grow up homeschooled and in the evangelical world.
Okay.
And what you did was you got married when you were super young. We both were in our early 20s. So that was kind of like the expected pattern for like a young person, like a young godly person.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we did. And then we had 2 kids pretty quickly and we were following just kind of the broadly expected evangelical trajectory. We were leaders of the college group in our church. We led Bible studies. We were heavily involved in our church in that world. And then I think I could say that I started my deconstruction journey, which all of this kind of like coincides together. Like my coming out and deconstructing journey were like basically happening at the same time.
Okay.
So I started that around the first Trump administration, where it felt like my idea of what a Christian was supposed to look like and how we were supposed to exist in the world was not lining up with what was being said from the pulpit or what I was hearing from people that I respected in my community. So I started to question just kind of the foundation and framework of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then during COVID, when we went on lockdown and everybody stayed home, we stopped going to church. And when I think back on that, it feels like coming up from being underwater
Okay.
and being able to look around and be like, I have this life based off of this foundation of this is what God wanted me to do. And I have these things that I built off of that. What do I even believe anymore? And how did we get here? What should the foundation of my decisions and framework of my life be?
Hmm.
So it kind of, to me, it felt like being in a room with a bunch of furniture and picking up different things and trying to figure out how they got there and did I need them anymore? I think that I, like a lot of other women, thought that like women just found other women attractive and everybody, like just everybody thought that.
Right, right.
And being in, like super conservative evangelical community, that was not a thing that you talked about. It was not like, didn't know any queer people growing up, like other than Ellen DeGeneres and maybe Rosie O'Donnell. That was
Right.
it.
Right.
There's no representation. And it was also directly taught from the pulpit that it was wrong and sinful and all of that kind of stuff. So that was not really an option. I do remember having like an experience super early in my 20s. And I remember like driving home and thinking, I will never tell anybody about this. I'm just gonna stuff it down and like it's something I'm gonna like live with forever. And I'm gonna
Right.
go like do the path that's like expected for like a godly young person
Was that
before I got married.
before you got married? Okay.
Yes.
So, but you still knew Andrew. Was there an expectation from your family you're going to marry him?
No, there wasn't, which
Okay.
is really interesting when I think about it, because even though my family's in that world, my mom was the one that was kind of like, you should slow down, go to school first. You don't have to get married right now. But the community that I was in was like, no, this is right. This is what you should do.
Gotcha.
And I also remember talking to a mentor friend of mine. She said it doesn't matter, like physical attraction doesn't matter, that'll come later.
Mm-hmm.
What matters is like, are they godly, and what matters is their character.
Mm-hmm.
So that was largely what I went off of.
Right.
So yeah, so there's all of that. And we had a lot of like social values that lined up, moral values that lined up, music tastes that lined up.
Mm-hmm.
We traveled together.
Would you say that he was like a best friend for you?
I think my
Mm-hmm.
best friends and deep emotional connections were always with my other female friends.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I've ever thought about that question actually.
No, just in hearing you say about all the lining up of the values and traveling and music tastes, so I was like, oh, it just sounds like maybe he was a good friend.
Yeah, I think so. We were up in COVID times,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a little bit rocky. He was trying to start his own kind of entrepreneurial thing.
Mm-hmm.
We were home. I was working as a nurse on a COVID unit, and then we were both kind of like beginning our deconstruction.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think I just kind of stumbled onto lesbian TikTok, and there were these videos from women talking about how they'd been married to men, had kids, and then had like gotten divorced and come out and then were dating other women.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know anybody like that. I didn't really know that was an option.
Right.
And then I think that like I just started like dipping my toe in the water in my own mind of like, what if I'm not straight? What
Mm-hmm.
if but then I feel like I internally tried on a couple different things. Like what if I'm bi? What
Mm-hmm.
if I'm just generally queer? What if, you know, just kind of like trying on different things. And then I
Mm-hmm.
remember distinctly, I don't know what year this was, but standing in the kitchen and then telling him, I don't I don't think I'm into men, or I don't think I like men. And his response was like, I don't know why people like them anyways. And that was really validating.
Yeah.
And he was very supportive of talking about it in the beginning. Like he didn't shut it down. I don't know that he felt like threatened by it in the beginning, but a lot of it was just talking through different ideas of maybe this is who I actually am. Maybe this is what I'm actually attracted to.
Okay.
And then talking through like what that would mean. What does that mean for me? What does it mean for us? What does it mean for the family? And at the time, I had a Christian therapist that I was seeing, it was more on the progressive side of things, but I remember distinctly telling that person, I think I'm gay, but I already have this family. How can I like be happy? I felt like I'd already made these choices, already had this family. I need to like
See it through.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's kind of a whirlwind of other things that happened. I really think that we probably would have gotten divorced anyways, even if this wasn't on the table. I think that we got married very young, and I think that we were completely different people anyways by this time. And then I went on a trip with a friend of mine one summer. I think with like the space away, did a lot of thinking about like, what do I want? And the thing that I remember, I didn't want to be 65. Why I picked that age, I don't know. But I kept thinking, I don't want to be 65 and look back on my life and be full of regret for not having lived authentically.
Mm-hmm.
And then I felt like I could choose to still stay in this role that felt like very constricting, and I could, and it wasn't bad all the time,
Mm-hmm.
but it kind of felt like slowly eroding on the inside. Like if I stayed, then I would just like shrivel up internally.
Yeah.
So that summer, I decided to leave both my faith and my marriage at the same time. I felt like I couldn't do one without the other. It felt like just sort of burning everything down, but also staying in the same place. Like I didn't move out of the city. I was still here. I still had the same friends. I had the same job.
Right.
I had all the same everything, but everything had changed at the same time too.
So hard and brave to everything that you knew. Let's torch it. But like you're saying too, a lot of people will torch it and then like move away or like start fresh somewhere else. But to stay and be like, I'm here for it. I'm really here for it. That's huge.
I had no expectations for like what was going to happen. I didn't know if I would lose friends. Of course, I lost my church community, but I thought that would be a really big hole because they were a huge part of my life. We were at church like multiple days out of the week, saw those people a lot. But I think that those relationships were built on something that wasn't mutually shared anymore once I left. I did try to see a couple people, and it was honestly very painful because it felt like I was on the outside and they were trying to save me, I guess, which I understand. I didn't hold anything against them because I felt like they were probably genuinely concerned, but it was still extremely painful.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't miss that community, which is really surprising. Like, I was expecting a big absence, and it wasn't.
Have you found new community?
It felt more freeing than anything. Yes, I intentionally, I decided, I had this like idea that I wanted to find other queer parents. So I joined a book club, and I also went specifically searching on Facebook groups, like other queer parenting Facebook groups, and way quicker than I thought, started building little bits of community and found other queer moms really quickly and there's actually a lot of people who've gotten divorced and date women now, a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people who've gotten divorced and date women who don't have kids, and then quite a few people that have gotten divorced and do have kids. So I found some friends who are both moms and they both have kids, and it just felt very validating because we had a lot of like similar experiences, and it was nice to be able to have some things that you didn't need to explain.
That's great to hear, especially because it sounds like, based on what you said about your church community, that was something you were heavily steeped in from such a young age. And then to turn around and like, okay, now I'm uprooting everything. I'm changing things because I need to live authentically, but I still want to be able to have community and space where I feel like I'm held by people who understand what I'm going through. So I think that's amazing to know that it was there.
Yes. And then my family have been incredibly supportive too. They've been a huge, huge, huge support in so many ways. I'm really grateful. And I feel really lucky for that too.
So you said you were raised in the evangelical setting, but you feel like your family, despite the fact that they're still involved in it, they're still really supportive. So how do you walk that line for yourself, or does it feel like they have to walk a line? Is it much smoother than you expected?
Honestly, sometimes it depends on the lens that I think about it with. If I think about it in like a broad lens, wow, I am a totally different person than I was 8 years ago. I wonder sometimes what they think about it. But also I think that they can see that I'm happy, you know?
Yeah.
I think that that's what matters more to them
Than anything
than
else.
things. Yeah. They really like my partner, and she came over for, like, my dad's birthday and has been kind of, like, integrated into our family life. Right now, we do a daily FaceTime phone call. Whatever parent has the kids, like, we talk every day, and the boys have been adding in my mom and my partner into, like, the FaceTime phone calls, so we're all,
Cool.
like, in there all together.
That's super nice. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that too. Now with the divorce and you and Andrew moving on with different partners and creating different lives, but all within the same scope of a family. How has that been?
So, I feel like every decision that we've made has been with what would be best for the boys in mind. Like, when we first initially separated, we decided to do a nesting arrangement where the boys stayed in the house and we rented an apartment, and we switched off and the boys stayed in the same place because we felt like that would be a better kind of transition. We never imagined that it would be long term. We just did it for a year. It was honestly very challenging, and I was so happy to get into my own space essentially. But I was happy for them that they had at least like some time to kind of get used to the idea of us not being together, but they weren't overnight had to go back and forth between two different houses.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm grateful that we did that. Actually, when we decided to do that, like the next day, I was listening to NPR and it was somebody interviewing somebody who had written a book about nesting. And
Wow.
there were people that had been doing it for like 9 years where they would like switch off like that. And I
Wow.
cannot imagine doing that, but kudos to
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, right.
You know, there's no way that it's not affecting them. Divorce, of course, like affects kids a lot. We decided to like preemptively put them in therapy
Hmm.
to kind of felt like harm reduction, I guess, try to anticipate and mitigate as much as we could, like the trauma of it. We wanted to make sure that we're talking about it, not pretending everything is okay if it's not, and making sure to give them the space to be able to be like, I don't like this. I don't like going back and forth from different houses. I don't like that we're not together, and not being like not shutting down any negative feelings that they might have about it.
Hmm.
And I feel like that's been from both of us. I think that we both try to do whatever is truly like the best for them in this situation. And even introducing new partners, I feel like we both were thoughtful in the timeline of that and how that happened and like slowly integrating people. I think all things considered, I'm grateful. I'm really grateful for the co-parenting side of things. I feel like that it functions pretty well. And I think that our integration of partners with everybody, the co-parenting side of things functions pretty well.
That's awesome. I know you've gone on family trips all together with your respective partners, and then I think your family members, right? Your parents as well. Like,
Yeah.
how has that been? Because to have that be cohesive to where you're going and doing family trips with everybody involved. One, I mean, I know your kids aren't here to share their experience, but
Yeah.
like, I feel like as a kid, that's got to be like, yay, everybody's together. But then
Yeah.
also to make it work as the adults involved, I think that's huge. So like, how has that been?
I think that goes back to just the idea of what is best for the boys. I think
Hmm.
all the adults in their lives care about them and their well-being, and nobody's trying to be like petty or one up anything. And I'm very grateful for that. I always had this vision of the boys and then having like a big supportive network around them. That's
That's
still
awesome.
like that's my broad vision whenever I think about our blended family situation.
I think it's pretty amazing, being so conscious about having that be the intention of the boys being at the center and everybody coming around them. I think that's super grounded, and it sounds like all of you are executing it really well.
Yeah, not without hiccups every now and then because everybody's humans and there's multiple moving parts.
Yeah.
But I think that we all have the same goal and that is very helpful.
So your partner, she does not have any kids, correct? How has it been trying to integrate her into, their lives? How has it been for her, like coming in and dating you who has kids, and what has that been like for your relationship together?
sometimes I think that it has added a lot of dynamics that aren't necessarily there when you're just two single people dating each other.
Mhm.
Because we have the dynamics of like when it's us and the boys, and then we also have the dynamics of kind of being involved in like the broader like co-parenting relationship. And then I think that we are involved a lot with like the boys and my parents too, because we all are like part of their support network. Kelsey talks a lot about this sort of like a mantra. I think it comes from somebody else, like a poem or a lyric. Don't remember who to accredit this to, but she talks about this phrase that's let's organize our lives around love and care.
Mm.
And she talks about that a lot in relation to our life with the boys. And she also just she thrives in like the boy chaos really.
That's awesome. Well, I'm sure that it helps, especially as a mom, feeling like, okay, there's someone who they're embracing this as opposed to feeling like, I don't know what to do here.
Yes.
I feel like now I'm jumping around, but was there anybody in your life who, when you did come out and when you did make this shift, was shocked or felt like, what do you mean, kind of a thing?
So most of my like close friends, when I told them like I'm gay, and most of them were like, yes, you are. Like a lot of them were not surprised at all.
Okay.
The only pushback that I got, I was prepared for like, I don't know, vitriol from, especially from like church people. I don't
Hmm.
know. I didn't know anybody that had done this before. I didn't know like what
Yeah,
was happened. But most my like close friends, it didn't really feel like there was a period of adaptation.
that's
I
great.
feel like I came out and then that was that.
That was it. It was just like
Yeah.
one day to the next, like, okay, it's just a different day. I'm the same
Yeah.
person. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Coming out of the church, do you feel like there was a lot of programming that you had to shed or looking at your life differently to accept yourself and to love yourself?
Yes. Whenever I think about this, I think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs because
Mhm.
I feel like the bottom part of the pyramid was just sort of the big parts of things, like leaving church, leaving my marriage, and then rebuilding. And then
Mhm.
as things got kind of like settled, I can move on to like the next thing. I had a therapy session right before this, actually. We were talking about religious trauma and just the little Weasley ways that it gets into stuff, especially like growing up in like childhood in it and being able to like trust yourself and your own intuition. The branch of evangelicalism I grew up in, we were told like you can't trust yourself, you're inherently sinful.
Right.
Your heart is like deceptive and deceitfully wicked above all things. Like
Wow.
it's literally as a child you're taught over and over again. You can't trust
Right.
yourself, you can't trust your thoughts, you can't trust your feelings. So it's like trained to like squash your intuition and like
Yeah.
so relearning that, like relearning the ability to like listen to my own intuition, know even what that feels like
Mhm.
that's been I think the biggest thing that I've been working on. That's probably going to be like a long process.
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of stuff to like unpack and work through from having like grown up like steeped in it. And I, bought it hook, line, and sinker for a long time.
I mean, and no shame in that because you were such a young child, like if that's what you're raised in for so long, that becomes the script that you know.
Yeah.
And then you've had the courage though to like flip it and change the trajectory for yourself to where now like you're trusting that authenticity, trying to live within what feels right to you, and now unpacking the mental programming and
Yes,
the rest of the
exactly.
stuff that you've, been subjected to. And you're not alone. There's so many people who are trying to break from those bonds because
Yeah.
they're really strong.
They are. Yes.
Wow. Your story, I feel like, is unique in that nobody talks about those things. Nobody has the same experience of being homeschooled and like indoctrinated in that way and so on and so forth. But like seeing that there's others that have experienced similar things to you and now knowing that you're not alone, what would you share to someone else who may have been in a similar position to you? Now that you've gained some insight, what would you say was something that would have been so helpful for you to hear?
Like at the beginning when I was doing all of this, I feel like it sounds really cliche, but if somebody had told me that it's going to be really hard at first, but you will like get through and there will be community on the other side, and living authentically feels better than anything that I could have imagined. Like all of my interactions with people, I think I take this for granted now, but initially when I first came out, even like interacting with people at like clerks at the grocery store, it was so nice to just like I didn't feel like I had to like hide anything. There wasn't like a hidden agenda that I had. Like there was no like evangelical anything. I got to like let them be them and let me be me. And that
Hmm.
was so freeing.
Yeah. No, and I love that you said that too. Just like the little things in your daily life, like going to the grocery store. Like, I feel like that's huge. Just like I can show up the way I need to show, and it doesn't matter who sees. Like, there's nothing
Yeah.
for me to hide anymore.
Yes.
That's awesome. Well, I really loved getting to hear all of those things and for you to share them because I feel like, again, it's just these stories, these are the real stories that I feel like people need to know and need to hear because then you don't feel so alone,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So
I
thank you for
mean,
sharing.
yeah, hearing other people's stories of how like what they went through. And there were some people that I followed who documented kind of like their process
Mm-hmm.
was so validating. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Thank you.
thank you for sharing, Lauren, and thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Hey everyone. Well, thanks for stepping out of the reads with us today. And I hope that you got something out of today's show. Of course, always please support the show. You can like, follow, subscribe. You can follow us on Buzzsprout, Instagram. Please feel free to get some of the backstory of how I even started the podcast by ordering my book, The Art of Motherhood. It's got art from my postpartum journey, poetry, and memoir of my journey in motherhood. And yeah, as always, thank you for being here and listening. Follow along on my website, outofthereads.com. For more updates later in the year, we're looking to do a women's retreat, and we're also planning on starting up the Art of Motherhood book group again. So if you're in the Jacksonville area, please feel free to give us a shout out and to follow along to see when that's going to happen. As always, thanks for joining, and we'll catch you next week.